When you suggest that we're trying to suppress the vote, you are in essence, between the lines, calling us racist, and that will not stand. That will not stand. You're right to your opinion, but at least read the bill. You're right to come and testify against it if you don't like it, but at least read the bill. But don't come out like American Airlines has and other companies and Major League Sports and call a bill voter suppression, that it will hurt people of color, when you haven't even read the bill. That's not acceptable. And all of these businesses in Texas, you know, it used to be where you came to the legislature to talk about policy that may have impacted your business, regulations, financial issues, tax issues. Stick to that. Because let me tell you something. You keep meddling in issues that people have elected Republicans or Democrats to address. You keep meddling in these issues without any understanding or even reading bills, and you're turning off 50% or more of your potential customers. You've meddled in a lot of issues lately. I'm not a big believer in boycotts, but people will make up their own minds. Stay out of things you don't know anything about, and if you want to get involved, then you're taking that risk. You have a right to your opinion, but read the damn bill before you give one. And don't insult us. Well, this is not we don't want you to take this personally. You know why they said that? Because they might come down the street next session and have a bill they want us to pass for them. Good luck. We'll treat them fairly like we always would. But as Governor Abbott said on Fox earlier this morning, we have brought a lot of businesses to Texas, and they come here because we're the best state to do business in. But if they think they're going to attack the legislature on issues they have no knowledge about and come to us with their hand out, well, that's just not going to be the way we do business. We offer incentives to businesses that come here. Many come here without them. But don't on one hand say thank you, Texas, and on the other hand slap us in the face. We're not going to put up with it anymore. I want to talk about racism. I've grown up in this country. I turned 71 this week. I grew up in the 60s. I saw it. Our country's moved so far ahead with so many more things to do. But I feel that there are people in this country that are trying to do everything they can to divide us on every issue. No matter what the Republicans oppose or support, the Democrats yell and the left yells and many in the media yell, well, it's racism, your position on the border, or health care, or education, or vaccine rollout. And now, a voter security bill. Americans are tired of it. White, black, and brown, they see through it. They see through it. When that's all you can say, then you have no argument. We have to heal this nation. And we can't heal this nation if people cry racism on every issue, at every turn. What's the end game in all of that? Short-term gain, maybe it helps you win an election. Long-term divisiveness in this country. You know, I hate to quote Charles Barkley, but he is a pretty colorful character. I knew him a little bit when he played with the Houston Rockets. Not a friend, but Charles said the other night on the game something that I believe in. He said, I believe most white people and most people of color are great people, and I agree. And he blamed a lot of this divisiveness on politicians, and I agree. That's not who we are, Mr. American Airlines, in the Texas Senate, or the Texas House, or in the governor's office. That's not who we are. This is a good bill to help secure the vote so people can have confidence in the outcome of elections in Texas. Now, there's been some questions about 3 issues dealing with 24-hour voting and drive-in voting and sending ballots to everyone. Well, I have news for Harris County. You're not the capital of Texas. The state capital resides in Travis County, in the city of Austin, in this building, not in the county judge or the mayor's office. Harris County does not make policy and create law for the other 253 Texas counties. Out of thin air, they decided on drive-in voting. Now, there was a case filed. The judge threw it out on lack of standing, but the judge said in the case, had I opined, I would have said it was unlawful, because the Constitution says a voting location must be a building. A tent is not a building. And if they're worried about people of color in the Democrat side who came up with this drive-in voting, statistics show that more people of color don't have cars than not. So how'd they help those folks? And remember, when you vote, you don't take 3 or 4 people in with you. It's privacy of the ballot. If you vote in a car and there's 3 or 4 people in the car, it's just handing the slate around. And by the way, would the media report this, that there's still 7,000 votes from those drive-in voting centers that have not been resolved, that there's a wrong count with the Secretary of State? Will you all do your work and kind of figure that out? I mean, it was about 15% of all the early vote. 24-hour voting. Once again, they pulled it out of thin air. That's not in state law. They just made it up. It's hard to secure, it's hard enough getting poll watchers for Democrat campaigners and Republican campaigners and volunteers to run all the election precincts and polling places as it is. Not that many people voted. And in Senate Bill 7, we actually expand voting till 9 p.m. The idea that we're cutting back on hours, another lie. We require that counties of 100,000 or more have at least 12 hours, but we've said you can now keep your polling places open until 9 p.m. if they choose to. With 24-hour voting, people have plenty of time to vote. Again, we're not repealing a law. It was something that Harris County made up on their own. And then there was this issue of sending ballots out to everyone. People say, well, Dan, why wouldn't you want to send a ballot to everyone out there? Because people move. People die. Ballots go to homes and apartments where the voter no longer lives. What's the one question they asked you when you go to vote? I bet no one here in the media can answer the question. What's the one question they asked you? Is this your current address? Addresses aren't always updated. So you have thousands or millions of votes potentially going out to homes where the people have died or have moved. Our law is simple. You request a mail-in ballot, we send you the form, you get it. No one complained about that before. It's worked very well. But again, Harris County. Thank God Harris County is not the capital of Texas, because all the other 253 counties would have been shut down like Harris County was to business. And Texas would be like California and New York if Harris County was in charge. And criminals would be running rampant on the street because in Harris County they can't keep people charged with serious crimes in jail. The judges just let them out. We'd have crime all over the state if Harris County were in charge. So what is, before I take your questions, what does Senate Bill 7 do? Senate Bill 7 requires a paper backup for every ballot. Mr. American Airlines, are you okay with that? I just want to check. Media okay with that? Paper ballots? Sound good? Consistent rules statewide will ensure Texas continues to be able to count our ballots on time. Mr. American Airlines, are you okay with that? Media, are you okay with that? I mean, we don't want to be Pennsylvania and Georgia and other states that took days and weeks to count their ballots. We had pretty much all ours counted by election night. We want to keep it that way. Both parties agree mail-in ballots are the ones acceptable to fraud. Here's a quote from a friend of mine, former Senator Jose Rodriguez, 2017. This is his quote. "I strongly believe we must address mail-in ballot fraud." That's Jose Rodriguez, 2017. Now, he didn't like the bill we passed, but he acknowledged mail-in ballot fraud is a problem. The other night in the debate, one of the senators, one of the Democrats on the floor said, "Senator Hughes, why do we need this bill? We have less ballot fraud than we used to have." Really? So how much did we used to have, Senator? How much did we used to have? How much do we have now? You said it's less. How much is less? Mail-in ballot fraud is so hard to catch and to prove. But Democrats and Republicans alike know it exists. And that's why we have to secure our mail-in ballots. Senate Bill 7, ballots will actually go to voters who currently live at the address, the point I was making. Is that okay with you, Mr. American Airlines and the media? Does that sound like voter suppression? Senate Bill 7, disabled voters who vote curbside will have the same protections of privacy as people who vote in person. Is that okay with you, Mr. American Airlines? Did you know that was in the bill? All communications with election machine vendors will be subject to open record request. Is that okay with you, Mr. American Airlines? I can name other companies, but American Airlines seems like leading the charge on these types of issues. Anyone in the media object us making sure we have transparency dealing with any voting machine vendors? No voting machine can be connected to the internet because we're concerned about hacking. Companies like American Airlines and Dell and others spend millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to protect from people hacking their computers. We don't want our voting machines hacked, so they cannot be machines that use the internet. Is that okay with you, Mr. American Airlines and the media? No vote totals can change once the actual votes are cast. What does that mean? Because when you take these discs out, we want to be sure that these discs cannot be rewritten. They come out of the machine with the vote totals. Is that okay with you, Mr. American Airlines and media? Counties over 100,000 will be required to live stream their counting process. Is that okay, Mr. American Airlines and media? And I know there was a question about polling places, and I addressed that before about our polling places in Senate Bill 7 are now based on eligible voters. In other words, every 118. That's how many polling places you get. Do you know when Harris County, again, we don't want them running the state because they're doing a really poor job of running their own county. But when they set up the drive-in vote polling places, guess what? In the largest Republican precincts, they had 2 drive-in locations. In the largest Democrat precinct, which was smaller than the Republican, they had 5. And that's why we have to address that in Senate Bill 5, because local officials, maybe Republicans, maybe Democrats, might just want to play with the numbers a little bit to put more voting locations that favor them than the other party. We don't want that to happen from either side. Bottom line is, to Texans and to Americans, we must stop this race baiting on every issue. Election security is what the public wants. Over 75% support photo voter ID, which Congress wants to eliminate, by the way. Voters want confidence in their election system. Senate Bill 7 is not voter suppression, it's voter security. And if Beto and Castro and Turner and Hidalgo and all these other folks out there protesting with their fists in the air that this is voter suppression, they're lying to you. Let them point it out in the bill. Are there some things in the bill they don't like? Yeah, I got it. All legislation is like that. We took some Democrat amendments, as a matter of fact, on the bill. But Senate Bill 7 is about voter security. And all of us in America, all of us in office, all of us in the media, all of us in corporate America need to take a step back and think about what we say and what it means and how it affects our country and our state. Questions?
You mentioned
As Senator Rodriguez said, I strongly believe, he didn't say I believe, he said I strongly believe in 2017. I strongly believe. Now, he didn't vote for the bill in 2017, but he said I strongly believe we must address mail-in ballot fraud. We need as close to zero tolerance as we can get on people casting ballots they shouldn't cast. I'm not talking about 2020. I'm not talking about 2016. Democrats and Republicans have different views on those elections. I'm talking about Texas. I'm talking about now. I'm talking about 2011 when everyone made the same argument. Why do you need voter ID? We don't have any voter fraud. You're going to suppress the vote. You heard my numbers. They increased dramatically. 76% gubernatorial, almost 40% for presidential. They said the same thing in 2017. We need a secure and safe voting system. Don't you want your bank to be secure? Do you want them to protect all of your money or just some of your money? Is it okay for someone to hack in and steal 10% of what you have or 5%? Or do you want all 100% of your money to be protected at your bank? That's how we should look at voting.
Have other corporations reached out to you, or the NCAA or MLB? Have any of those groups reached out to you to express their opinions on it, like American Airlines has?
No, not to my knowledge. American Airlines, I don't know who came up with the idea of let's call the Lieutenant Governor's office and tell him this isn't personal, and let him know, tell the governor it's not personal, but we're coming out against your bill. And then also telling us you haven't read it. I don't know who came up with that idea, but they ought to fire that guy. I can't think of anything really more offensive.
A lot of these corporations in Texas give donations to Republicans or campaigns.
They give donations. A lot of your big corporations give donations to Democrats and Republicans because they play both sides of the street because they want to be sure they're covered on who wins.
So some of these groups might be giving you money. But
I couldn't care less who gives me money. And if this means some of my... and corporations can't give money, as you know. You cannot take corporate donations. I couldn't care less. What I care about is a secure election in Texas. I care about ending this constant, divisive talk about racism every day, everywhere, on every issue. What I care about is stopping professional sports teams and companies from getting involved in issues they know nothing about. Major League Baseball ought to be embarrassed. I don't know what the Georgia law is. I've read about it. Don't know if that's all true. I can't trust everything I read. But Major League Baseball and the players, the players union, and there are a lot of my people of color play Major League Baseball. I wonder how they feel that 50% of black people in Atlanta had the game taken from them to send it to Denver, where only 9% of people are black. You think that helped anybody who's black or brown? This is what happens when the media doesn't give the facts. This is what happens when you let people lie. Anything I said here today, hold me to it. Everything I said today is true. Every fact I gave you is correct. And if I'm off a number and I misspoke, I'll correct it. But I'm confident of everything I told you today is correct. Yeah, I watched that press conference yesterday in Houston. They didn't talk about one thing in the bill. One or two things about one or two issues they didn't like, but on voter suppression, they couldn't make the point because it doesn't exist in the bill. Any other questions? Yes.
You said that you wouldn't know with these corporations having it both ways.
Right.
So do you think that these corporations should potentially lose some of their taxes?
Let's take another quick 2-minute break right here on News Now from Fox.
With this, what I'm saying is that for corporations in Texas who bask in the greatness of the Texas worker, and bask in a state with no income taxes, and bask in a state with light regulation, and have grown their businesses dramatically. And they're moving here from everywhere because they're being taxed out of blue states or overly regulated. Then you come here and you want to criticize us? I'm fine with the criticism. If the CEO of American Airlines wanted to call up and say, you know, Dan, I don't like this part about the bill. I'm sending someone down to testify against it. But when they call you and tell you, don't take this personally, but we're opposing the bill, and they list out the reasons, which I think are borderline charges of racism from them, that's not acceptable. It's not going to stand, and I'm going to call them out for it, and so is Governor Abbott, and so are Republicans. We're not going to put up with this nonsense anymore. Corporate America Corporate America does not run this country. I know big tech likes to think they do. The people of the country run the country. I got elected with somewhere 4 million voters, whatever it was last time. I represent 4 million voters. I don't represent the CEOs or the people on the board at these companies. If they want to support me, great. If they want to support the Democrat, great. If they don't want to support anybody as individuals, I couldn't care less. You know, it's amazing to me. The Democrats used to be, they said, the party of the people. They become the party of big tech and big business. And they don't give a hoot about their voters. They don't give a hoot about the black and brown people that they represent, along with their white voters. They don't give a hoot. The Republicans, used to be accused of being the party of big business. We were never the party of big business. We're just smart on business. But we're now the party that represents the people in this state and in this country, white, black, and brown. Look at the results of the 2020 election in the Valley. Donald Trump turned, I believe it was 7 counties from Democrat in an area that's historically minority and historically Democratic. Because they looked at Donald Trump and said, that guy's looking out for me. They're worried about their jobs in the oil and gas industry that the Democrats have destroyed. They're worried about people pouring over the border and bringing crime to their cities and COVID to their cities. I've always been a grassroots person. That's how I got elected. You know, I didn't have any big companies or any lobbyists or anyone else supporting me when I ran in 2007, and few did in 2013 when I ran for lieutenant governor. I've done very well with Hispanic voters. I think in 2014, Greg Abbott and I set a record for receiving Hispanic support. I think it was around 50% all time for a Republican. I value the individual. That's who I listen to. I'm not paying attention to a CEO of a company who says, I haven't read your bill, but I'm against it. Really? Go away. Any other questions? One more. And then one more, and then we'll wrap it up.
Back on topic of election
Yeah.
security, in all 3 cases in Pennsylvania due to the convictions, do you plan on giving Lieutenant Governor his award money? It has been...
Just go, don't ask me a stupid question. I didn't come here to take stupid questions from the media. It's ridiculous, okay? It's ridiculous. I just answered your question. I answered your question, okay?
Mayor,
Yes.
He said it restricts voting access, and he also said it's an unwelcome intrusion into local affairs. Response to that.
That was the mayor of Austin?
Yes.
Oh, golly day. There's Mr. Credibility. I'm in Cabo. Don't leave your house. Defund the police, crime's up, people are getting killed. But Austin's safe. I don't pay any attention. Another liberal who's clueless and who hasn't probably read the bill. There's nothing, let me repeat this. There's nothing in the bill about voter suppression. It's all about voter security. Let him point to you where he believes that is. We haven't changed early voting days. Mail-in ballots are the same. We've made it easier for people in signatures. Election day, we're increasing hours to 9 p.m. Look, I was a longtime member of the media. Things are complex sometimes. That's when you have to dig in, do your homework, check the facts. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Did I tell you that was going to be the most in-demand news conference there, probably for today, maybe even the week there, as we saw the lieutenant governor from Texas just really breaking it down and bashing the media, bashing American Airlines for what he is calling, quote, race baiting there, and with these voting laws that continue to be talked about in Georgia. Take a look at what's happening in Georgia. MLB pulled out from the All-Star game, and now it's going to Denver there. A lot of controversy. So we'll continue to follow all the news and updates that we get right here on News Now from Fox, everybody. Let's continue to